All set.
Call this meeting to order. All rise, please. Right behind you, George.
Just recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Camera. Go right in. Sit in.
Somewhere along here, there's a couple of trays of chocolate chip cookies and homemade raisin cookies. I personally can vouch for their quality. They'll be here shortly, along with some water to quench everybody's thirst. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. This is, I guess, we're the preceding part of the Vergennes Police Department Recognition Night. What I'd like to do is ask you to take a moment and I'd like to recite the police officer's prayer. I got online today and looked up a number of them, and this one seemed the most exemplify what Vergennes Police Department is all about. So if you would please, just bow your head. Police officer's prayer. Another day, Lord, to do my work, unsure of what lies ahead. It may hold the chance to help those in need, and that would be my wish. I pray that you will empower me to be a peacemaker to all those I come in contact with. To the helpless, may I be a helper. To the distressed, may I be a comfort. To those who plan evil, may I be a deterrent. And to those who have carried out their plans, may I be a sword of justice so they will no longer prey on the weak and hurting. I humbly ask that you surround me with your angels and a wall of fire for my protection. And in the course of your plan, I find this day to be my last. The concern of my life is that you would be the father to my children and the provider to my spouse. In your name, Lord, amen. Okay. Next order of business. Okay, Mayor Daniels, City Manager, Mayor Hawley, members of the City Council, distinguished guests and family and friends of officers of the Vergennes Police Department. I want to welcome you to our annual recognition night, and I want to thank all of you for being here to recognize your officers. It is with great pride and pleasure that I stand before you tonight to acknowledge that your officers, as well as the individuals who significantly contributed to our efforts in keeping the community of Vergennes safe. What I would like to do is ask each one of my officers, first and foremost, to come forward and take one of these blue roses and then go to their family member and present the blue rose. Now, before they do that, I would like to explain to you a little bit about the blue rose. It's no secret that being a police officer is not an easy profession. There's a lot of self-sacrifice made for each one of these officers. They do a lot of work keeping themselves in good shape, keeping themselves technically and tactically proficient, and in order to do that, that ensures their safety as well as that of our community. So these guys all put a lot of time and effort in on their own part. Likewise, our families do. Our families sacrifice a lot for us. We're gone at night, we're gone during weekends and holidays, when kids are having special events or family events. These guys, because of the profession they chose to take, make those sacrifices, and they do so readily. And when it comes to family, I feel pretty strongly about that. Officers, please come up and accept the rose and present it to the family member that you choose to present it to. Sergeant Grayson, come on up. And if your family member is not here tonight, please make sure it makes it home. Officer Ouellette, Officer Newton, Officer LaFleche, Officer Wager, Officer Worley. Officer O'Neill. And Officer Fairbanks. Personally, again, would like to thank each one of the families for their sacrifice in supporting their police officer in their work for City of Vergennes, and I'd like to give them a round of applause, please, the families. Now, again, before I go any further, what I'll do is I'm going to ask City Manager Mel Hawley to recite the oath of office, in which we're going to follow. So all of my officers, please stand up. Raise your right hand.
And repeat after me. On my honor,
On my honor,
I will never betray my badge,
I will never betray my badge,
my integrity,
my
character, or the public trust.
or the public trust.
I will always have the courage
I will always have the courage
to hold myself and others
to hold myself and others
accountable for our actions.
accountable for our actions.
I will uphold the rights
I will uphold the rights
and privileges of citizens guaranteed to us by the United States Constitution.
by the United States Constitution.
Enforce the laws of the state of Vermont.
Enforce the laws of the state of Vermont.
Protect the city of Vergennes.
Protect the city of Vergennes.
And professionally serve as an officer of the Vergennes Police Department.
And professionally serve as an officer of the Vergennes Police Department.
Thank you.
I think it's important that we recite that oath of office each and every year. It's important that no matter what you do or how you do it, you always go back to your roots. And the oath of office is where these officers all started. So like I say, that's become a tradition, and it's a tradition as long as I'm here as the chief of police. We will do this every year with your support. Next, what I would like to do is I would like to ask Officer Fairbanks and her parents to come forward. Officer Fairbanks is our newest addition to the police department. This is her mom and dad. And what we would like to do, this is a ceremonial type deal. Officer Fairbanks attended the part-time basic course of instruction. She completed that. She's in the process of becoming an officer who will be out executing her duties on her own. But we have a pretty stringent process like other departments do, where we have the officer attend the academy, they go through field training officer, and then we release that officer out on the street on their own when we feel as though they're ready to do so. Officer Fairbanks is doing well at this point in time, but tonight I would like to welcome her parents once again and have them just symbolize seating the badge, if you would please. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you very much. The first time you stand in front of a group and you have that badge pinned on, I think there's 50 caliber bullets that come off of your vest or shirt or whatever else. A lot of people profess that they don't like to be acknowledged in front of public. Well, I haven't seen a police officer that's fit that bill yet, so I'm glad they are who they are. Again, if I could introduce my staff, Sergeant Patrick Gracelet, Officer Jason Ouellette, Officer Brent Newton, Officer Regine LaFleche, Officer William Wager, Officer Robert Worley, Officer Adam O'Neill, and Officer Jory Fairbanks. Now, if I could, I would like to just give you a couple of highlights of the Vergennes Police Department throughout the year. I'll try to make it as quick as possible. The year of 2010 has been a very busy and challenging one for all of us. It's been a year that's brought even greater expectations and demands of our department, as well as continued improvement and growth. The Vergennes Police Department operates by the concept of community policing. Community policing is such that the police department, as well as the community, solve problems together. It's not just the police department, it's not the community, we become one. As we go on, we become more and more familiar with the people in our town, and we work together with a common goal of keeping Vergennes safe. During 2011, the Vergennes Police Department responded to 2,085 calls for service. This number represents an increase of 11% from 2010. We made 49 felony arrests, an increase of 145% from the year before. We also made 143 arrests for misdemeanor criminal offenses, an increase of 12% from 2010. If you do the math and you figure out how many officers I've got here and you divide just the numbers of arrests alone, that's a lot of effort and a lot of time. That's something you all should be proud of. The average number of police calls for service for each police officer was 417 calls for service for each officer during this year. The Vergennes Police Department issued 695 tickets for various motor vehicle violations, as well as issuing 408 written warnings. Now, it's no secret that narcotics investigations are very time-consuming and personnel-intensive. 2011 certainly has shown that our numbers of drug-related incidents grew dramatically by 59%, and the illegal possession, use, and sale of drugs again played a part in probably over 80% of our calls for service, not only in Vergennes, but in the outlying communities. These reports, while they indicated the presence of illegal drug activity, it's no different than any other community throughout the state of Vermont, it was encouraging for us because people were more apt to come to us with those problems, suspicions, and we had the opportunity to respond to them. And these officers have distinguished themselves in their fight against narcotics. I'll tell you, every week that goes by, somebody will make a comment about my officers, and I'm pretty proud. We've seen some successes. I consider them small successes, but we're well on our way to making things a little bit more difficult for these people to come into our community. With the acquisition of additional funding and equipment, we're going to see that come to pass. We started receiving funding from a federal funding source called the CDIP grant, which is Community Drug Interdiction, and in a 3-week period in November, we either made three heroin arrests, and we have a couple other investigations going on at the time. In November 2011, the Vergennes Police Department, the Vergennes Rotary Club, and the Lions Club, along with St. Peter's Parish, hosted the first Vergennes Community Action Group, which is an unprecedented success. There were over 300 people at the meeting. And since then, we've had a follow-on meeting of 150 people attended. That is unheard of when you have 10% of the community turning out. It shows a commitment by the city of Vergennes and the police department to fight the problem. We're not ignoring the problem, and we're going to beat the problem. Motor vehicle enforcement has always been a primary concern of mine, one of my primary goals. First and foremost, it makes our city streets safer for motorists and pedestrians alike by reducing speed and alcohol-related collisions and injuries. The first year I was here, I think we had 49 arrests for DUI, and last year, Sergeant Greenslow, do you remember, or Officer Newton, do you remember what we had for figures? It was down around in the 30s. That's a tremendous drop. By doing motor vehicle enforcement, it does a couple of things. It keeps our streets safe, it deters criminal activity, and the taxpayers get to see their dollars at work. We made some tremendous gains in terms of personnel and individual training. Officer Regine LaFlèche graduated from the full-time basic course in December of this year. Officer Adam O'Neill, our newest full-time acquisition, we picked him up on a COPS grant we received from the federal government, graduated in May, and we're lucky to have both of these guys with us. Both Officer Regine LaFlèche completed a very demanding 16-week course at the Vermont Police Academy. And like I say, Officer Fairbanks completed a 1-week course for part-time officer, and she's in the process of her field training as we speak. Our total complement of officers is 6 full-time and 4 part-time. An aggressive individual training program is essential to improving the overall capability of our department. In 2011, officers received critical training in areas that continue to enhance our department's overall investigative capability. Sergeant Patrick Greenslet completed a 1-week death investigator course at the Vermont Police Academy. Officer Ouellette completed a 2-week narcotics investigation course provided by the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration. Officer Ouellette, along with Officers Bob Worley and Bill Wager, attended an additional interview and interrogation. I think Officer LaFlèche was part of that too. Officer Newton attended a very, very demanding drug recognition expert course. Now, just to show you how selective this group of people is, I don't want to have to buy any new hats by saying this, but Officer Newton is one of about 3,000 people worldwide that is certified to determine whether an operator is under the influence of narcotics or not, and to have it pass judicial review, meaning the court accepts his testimony as an expert. That's a real feather in the city of Vergennes' cap and the police department's cap, and it certainly enhances our capability in keeping our highways safe. Some of the other things that happened this year, we picked up some nice equipment. We received a new radar system, just about for free. We had to pay, I think, $250 for a $1,900 piece of equipment. That is a result of our activities with the Governor's Highway Safety Program. When you do details and work for Governor's Highway Safety, we receive grant money. The grant money, in turn, is paid to our officers to go out and keep our streets safe. We also receive funding through our participation so we can buy equipment. Every WatchGuard system, which is an in-car video system, $5,000 piece of equipment, has been earned free of charge through their efforts. It saved the city $15,000 that we would otherwise had to have spent to purchase that equipment. The radar unit is another one. We picked up 2 additional tasers. We have a new cruiser. We also picked up a Stinger system, which is a stop stick system. It slows vehicles down if they're trying to outrun us. If there is we don't use roadblocks. We throw the sticks out, car goes over it, car stops. We've received the CDIP money, as we call it, $3,500. That is strictly for the enforcement of drug enforcement, counter-drug. We received a $150 display case, which will allow me to go around and do public speaking engagements and actually give people a visual representation of what we're looking at when we see drugs on the street. One of the other things we've acquired this year is we got a copier system which allows us to send our cases down to the state's attorney via the web, via wire, versus having to run it down there every time. Saves us a lot of windshield time and a lot of paper. One of the keystones that we've reached this year or attained this year is officer attending the DEA course. This DEA course is a very expensive course, and because of our involvement with the DEA in drug investigations, they decided to send one of our officers free of charge. I can't tell you how important that is to us in our fight against drugs. We've put that to good use already, and we're going to continue to do that. And we do have another officer here that received his narcotics detection recertification. That's keto. He's out in the car, but I'm afraid unwatched he'd probably be in all those cookies if he was in the building. So where are we heading for 2012? We're heading to a community-wide anti-substance abuse program. That is through the community action group that we've started. Incidentally, if you're interested in attending, February 8th is the next meeting at the Vergennes Union High School at 7 o'clock. We'll be in the library. We're also seeking to have a charter between education, civic organizations, religious organizations, law enforcement, Vergennes city government, medical organizations, pledging zero tolerance for substance abuse in our city. We have a wonderful city, we have a wonderful community, and we want to keep it safe. And I think if everybody buys into that and signs on, it's one great step to keeping our city safe. We're also looking at trying to acquire in the near future safety equipment, level 4 vests, ballistic helmets, and protective masks. Law enforcement is not getting any safer. I don't need to tell you what's been on the news as of late. Some of the incidents that we've run into, we recently in November or December, was it, when the troopers were involved in that shooting? That was in November. 2 officers, 6 months out of the police academy, 2 rookie state troopers were involved in a shooting. And by the grace of God, nobody got hurt on our side. Unfortunately for the other gentleman, God rest his soul, he's the one that ended up paying the price, but he did discharge a round towards one of our officers, and luckily it missed. God was riding with those troopers that night. So needless to say, we want to try to get this equipment to work within the scope of our department. We want to start a website. Again, we had one in the past. We want to get that going and upgrade it, upgrade our computer systems. We want to start our bike patrol program. We were looking at starting an annual physical fitness evaluation, annual evaluations, and the dress uniforms. Now, if I may, what you're seeing tonight is the first step towards our dress uniforms. Our officers have the white shirts and the gold braid. The next step will be getting dress trousers, and the next step after that will be getting the jacket. So basically, the outfit that I'm wearing tonight is what our dress uniform is going to be. I purchased this when my daughter graduated from the Rhode Island Police Academy, and I couldn't have her father and chief of police show up and anything but the best. And of course, that's what I want for my guys too. And at the top of our list, Santa, is our new police station. So we know that's in the works, and we hope that that comes sooner rather than later. Now, what I'd like to do, this is a very special occasion for this young gentleman, and the gentleman I'm speaking of is Officer Jason Ouellette. Officer Ouellette is a Vergennes resident, grew up here, attended school here at elementary school, at Vergennes Union High School. Officer Ouellette tonight is going to be promoted to the position of detective. Now, Officer Ouellette is stepping into this position for a number of reasons. Like all my officers, I could take any officer out of this group here and tell you that I believe these people are made of rock. They're rock solid as far as their integrity, their honesty, their dedication, and their teamwork. I couldn't ask for a better group of police officers, and I'm not just telling you that, I speak from the heart. So any one of these guys brings something to the table. Officer Ouellette has a love for criminal investigation. He has a love for drug investigation. He is a self-starter. He's done a lot of reading. He's attended a lot of courses, and it was with my great pleasure that I'm going to promote him to the position of detective. His function is to work on criminal cases, difficult criminal cases. We all participate. It's not like he is going to be doing that on his own. We all work together, a team, from the chief on down to our part-time officers. And I don't consider my officers part-time. Each officer is an officer. They're not a part-time officer or a full-time officer. So, what we are going to do tonight, if I could ask Officer Ouellette to step forward. Hope you have your vest on.
I do. You can stick me if you want.
Officer Newton just gave me the high five, so I guess I can go ahead and do that.
You want me to help?
I'm sure it'd have a bunch of other. Needless to say, none of these guys are small. They're all behemoths. They all well fed. Detective Ouellette. Detective Ouellette's position now enables us to follow through with some of these investigations that normally we wouldn't be able to dig in as deeply as we have. So having him in this place, just to give you a little idea of what he's done thus far, the heroin investigations that I was talking about, he played an important part. We all played a part in it, but he played a very important part in that. He's also solved a 2-year-old going on a 3-year-old sexual assault case. He solved a burglary, in which case he's going to be citing somebody for possession of stolen property, but he's also assisted, and through his skills in interview and interrogation, he came up with a confession and a statement which is allowed us to make an arrest of the 2 of the 3 people involved in the Toys R Us theft up in Williston. So not only does he distinguish himself within his own community, he does it outside the community, and that's what I want, because I want Vergennes to be the best. I'm a very poor second place finisher.
Oops, I'm sorry.
No, it's not the Yankee stuff. And by the time I'm done here, hopefully all these guys will wear pinstripes. I don't think that'll happen.
Stop maybe do that.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. He's probably got a wire to you. Okay, the next thing I would like to do is, while we're acknowledging some superlative performance, I'd like to ask Officer Brent Newton to step forward, please. Now, everybody has their niche in the police department, and Officer Newton's niche happens to be motor vehicle enforcement. As you can see here, if you can see over the top of that barrel vest of his, the DRE pin. This is a very prestigious award. He wears it with pride, and he's already assisted in one motor vehicle stop, which led to the arrest of somebody on the use of marijuana, ended up in an accident here on Panton Road. So he already put his skills to the test. Officer Newton's forte is motor vehicle enforcement, and it is my pleasure to award this certificate to him for the third time since I've been here. This is the third year in a row he's won this award, so if I could, I'd like to read this. The certificate of achievement is presented to Officer Brent H. Newton of the Vergennes Police Department for a superior dedication to and exemplary performance of traffic enforcement during the year of 2011. During 2011, Officer Newton was responsible for 12 motor vehicle operators, for arresting 12 motor vehicle operators for operating under the influence and/or narcotics, and for conducting 372 traffic stops, during which he wrote 333 tickets and 90 warnings. It is a well-known fact that aggressive motor vehicle enforcement drastically reduces the number of accidents that occur and reduces the subsequent number of injuries as a result of them. Such efforts serve as a deterrent to criminal activity. Therefore, they directly contribute to the overall safety of the city of Vergennes and the state of Vermont. Officer Newton's superlative performance is attributed to himself, the Vergennes Police Department, and the city of Vergennes. Officer Newton. Come on back up here, Officer Newton. Your wife didn't get a picture. And she's going to have to build, he told me when he was up here, he just whispered in my ear, Mrs. Newton, he's going to have to build that man cave so he can hang his awards on the wall.
Already have it.
All right,
He already
okay.
has it.
In November of 2011, again, we talked about the community action group. We got together as a community, decided that we were going to take a stand against substance abuse, just not narcotics abuse. I can stand up here all night and give you facts and figures of how many people have passed because of drugs, my personal involvements, but nothing cements the story home more than a family member coming forward and recounting their experiences, their losses. And one lady is not here tonight, Linda Namey. I know Linda, and my wife and I know Linda personally. I knew her son. I worked with him when I was in Middlebury, and unfortunately Sam passed away this spring. I also had the privilege of knowing Mrs. Manning's daughter, and she passed away this year because of drugs. For somebody to come forward and talk in front of a group and recount those experiences, I certainly consider that above and beyond the call of duty. And I would like to recognize Diane Manning tonight for that effort. Come on up, Diane. So if I may, the Vergennes Police Department, the City of Vergennes presents a certificate of appreciation to Diane Manning for a courageous presentation to the citizens of Vergennes. Her fortitude and courage during the recounting of our daughter Danielle's passing served as a catalyst for our movement and was an inspiration to all of us. Likewise, that same message has been heard countless times since and continues to bring the forefront a strong and concerted message as to the dangers of narcotics. This message and the groundswell of support it has received has energized not only the Vergennes community, but also that of the state of Vermont. Her courage, dedication, and the love of her daughter Danielle is a tribute to herself and her family. God bless you, Diane, and thank you from all of us. We also had a young fellow who grew up in our community. He ran headlong into a difficult time in his life with narcotics. He beat those odds, and I don't need to tell you how difficult that is. Not only is it difficult to beat those odds, but it's very difficult to stand up in front of a group of people and acknowledge that. Now, I'm not talking about somebody who's an older person, an adult, had an adult life. This young fellow is in his teens, and he's here with us tonight, and we want to present this certificate of appreciation to Andrew Coyle. Come on up, Andrew. If I may, Vergennes Police Department, the City of Vergennes presents a certificate of appreciation to Andrew Coyle for his courageous presentation to the citizens of Vergennes. His fortitude and courage during the recount of his battle with drug addiction served as a catalyst for our movement and was certainly an inspiration to every person that heard it. Likewise, the same message has been heard countless times since and continues to bring to the forefront a strong and concerted message as to the dangers of narcotics. This message and the groundswell of support it received has energized not only the City of Vergennes, but also that throughout the state of Vermont. Today alone, I got a call from the town of Bristol asking if they could attend our meeting. I got a call from the town of Fairhaven. They want to be part of our meeting, coming up to see how we're doing it. I've had inquiries from Shelburne, and I also had one from Middlebury. So we are making a difference. We can only do what we can do within Vergennes, but if people want to be part of that success story, God bless them, and I wish them the best. So Andrew, God bless you, and thank you from all of us. Your duties not only served here in Vergennes, throughout the state of Vermont. Thanks again, Andrew. Excuse for me for getting choked up, but that's just me. I'm very proud of my officers, and certainly very proud of the people that are here tonight. Now, a couple other quick awards, and then I'm going to ask the city manager to step forward. There are rites of passage for police officers. The first thing you have to do is make it through the police academy. First, you have to be hired, then make it through the police academy, and then we have a tradition. And tradition is very important of law enforcement, just like it is in the military. Sergeant Greenslet, stand up for a minute. As you can see here, Sergeant Greenslet has quite a bit of hardware on him. He's been around for a while. He's a sergeant. He's got his badge and the awards up above that. He's got his other pins that are on him. And if you look down the the left-hand sleeve, he's got his sergeant stripes and he's got his service stripes. Service stripes show that the guy's been doing the job. He's been successful in his profession, and he's been around now for over 20 years. Is that correct? How many years?
25 years.
25 years of service. That's quite a sacrifice, and that's quite an accomplishment. So when we have officers meet these milestones, i.e. 3 years for full-time officers, 5 years for part-time officers, they get the service stripe. They get service stripes, and they also get a rank. So now we have a couple of different officers that have met those milestones. So I'm going to ask Officers Brent Newton and Officer Bob Worley to step forward, please. Now, I know I'm not going to entrust you two guys with needle and thread, so I'm sure either seamstress or the wife's going to hear from them. But Officer Newton, Jason will do it, okay? And your rank. You move to the next step. And I'm not going to do it right now, but we also have the service stripes. Sergeant Greenslet now goes to 5, and Officer Newton and Officer Worley go to 1 service stripe. So that's a nice accomplishment. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Now, if I may, I'd like to ask the city manager to step up and say a few words.
Detail, attention.
Thank you, George. I get to call him George.
At ease.
George, when he puts these nights together, he always, puts a little agenda together, and he brings it into my office and says, Mel, take a look at this. See if you have any comments or anything. And he leaves it there for a couple of days. And this time I actually took it, and it had city manager's remarks up towards the top, and I circled it and dragged a little arrow down to the bottom, just threw it back in George's mail slot. And I'm sure that George looked at that and thought, Holly's got something up his sleeve, because he wouldn't do that unless he had some idea. So there's 2 reasons why I'm up here. One is I don't have a military background. I don't have a police background. And you've heard a little bit about how, in the case of Sergeant Greenslet, about this particular pin means this and this pin means that, and these types of things. And for us that aren't in the police, we aren't really familiar with that. But amongst officers, they really mean something. They all mean something to one another. And I learned something the other day. And had I known about this, I would have corrected this a long time ago. And so my first thing is about correcting something, and that is about chiefs of police. And there are some chiefs, and George, this is an example of how humble George is. George probably knows this, but he would never say anything to me. But a chief of police carrying 1 star is actually a deputy chief of police, all right? And I can tell you, Chief Merkel is no deputy chief of police. He's the real deal. And so I'm going to play ring bearer here a little bit, George, and get you the right hardware. Here's your 2-star medals, which is something
you very
that,
much.
and I do apologize for not knowing that.
Don't
And
worry, that's
obviously
fine.
I would have corrected that a while ago. Arm. The other thing, obviously George is real proud of his officers, obviously, about where he's brought them, you know, in really just a couple of years. And I think the officers are equally proud of what they've accomplished, but also about really how appreciative of a leader that they've got. And you know, there's lots of people that, you know, and they may not like their boss all the time, but you know, if you have a good leader, you know, it actually, you know, makes you a better person. And the officers came to see me. They snuck into my office and said, you know something, we want to do something for Chief. He's always talking about us. He's always bragging about us. And we want to do something in return. We want to return that appreciation by giving the Chief a certificate at this recognition ceremony. So with the help of the officers, put together the certificate, which I will read. Chief's Achievement Award, awarded to a police chief who has brought acclaim to his department and to the law enforcement profession, is awarded to Chief George P. Merkel. Since Chief Merkel has joined the Vergennes Police Department, he has banded the department together. Through his leadership, he has taken the department to a new level of professionalism, integrity, honor, and sense of duty. Chief Merkel has touched the lives of all of the officers in the department in a positive manner, making them strive to be better today than they were yesterday. Chief Merkel receives this award from the City of Vergennes at the request of his staff, the officers of the Vergennes Police Department.
Thank you very much. How do you, gentlemen? Wow. That was a surprise. No, I didn't have any idea. I went right through the stop sign on that one. I'd like to thank all of you for coming tonight. It means an awful lot to my officers and me. Needless to say, I'm a mush. I'm very proud of my officers. If you don't put your heart and soul into something, you don't do it at all. These guys do this every day. They have tremendous work ethic. And the reason I love my officers as much as I do, I mean, you can take all the hardware and all the training and all the things that they do, but the most important attribute of a good police officer is their heart. Now, let me recount. I'm not going to tell you who because I may embarrass you. This is the kind of thing. You can write tickets and you can write arrest people for DUI and drugs. But when you really make a connection with your community, you do something like I'm going to tell you about. I tasked one of my officers to go pick up a kid who was truant. This poor kid doesn't have much of a family background. My officer went over to pick that young fellow up to take him back to school, and during his course of conversation, he found out that this kid's birthday was that day. The kid didn't get a birthday gift. He had no birthday cake. My officer returned him back to school and had the presence of mind to go down and buy this kid a birthday cake and take it back to him. That is an incredible effort, and each one of my guys and gals do this on a regular basis. That's what cements a police department to a community. And I'm very, very thankful to have these people working for me. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mel. Thank you, fellas. And ladies and gentlemen, we've got cookies, and I'm bringing the water. If anybody would like some water and some cookies, my wife, actually, I'm going to tell you I did it, but Joan will tell you otherwise. She baked oatmeal raisin cookies, chocolate chip cookies, and one of the reasons this uniform's fitting as snugly as it is because of those cookies. So please help yourself. Thanks, folks. Thank you very much for supporting the Vergennes Police Department.
Before we move on here, we are in a meeting. What I'm going to do is adjourn the meeting for 15 minutes, and in that time, we'll accomplish eating cookies, drinking water, and then anybody that would like to leave before we start the other half, we're going to be doing some signing of documents that are end up going to France, so anybody like to hang around for that, we'd appreciate that. Chief?
Mayor, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sir. Thank you.
I'll call the meeting back to order, and we'll start with the next item on our agenda, which is the proclamation for Comte de Vergennes, the 225th celebration that's going to be held in France. And we have started some signature of both a English and French version of a document that's going out, declaration. And I will turn the floor over to Nita and ask her to do a little overview of what's happening. Nina, thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you for arranging all of this event. The Comte de Vergennes is being honored in Versailles, France, for one whole week in February. February 12th to 17th is going to be the Comte de Vergennes Day in Versailles, France, which, as you know, is the most amazing, stupendous place to be in France. It was the residence of the kings of France. The Comte de Vergennes was not only a man of power, he was the Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs for the king. And he was not only a man of power in that regard with his office, but he was a confidant of the king. And as most of you in politics know, if you are a friend and a confidant, as well as a very practiced politician, you are really it. And the Comte de Vergennes' great claim to fame, as far as we're concerned, but it was of course important to our whole country of America, was his role in bringing France in on the side of the Americans against the hated British. The French and the British were always at odds. They fought, as you know, for the control of North America. And the French just couldn't believe that they would ever let the chance go to forget that they needed to complete whatever had to be done to help the colonies become independent from England. So the Comte de Vergennes was the one who was the power leader in that struggle to bring France in on the side of the Americans. It's a formidable. The French were a formidable force. As many of you know who know the battles of the American Revolution, the War of Independence, there were sea battles, there were land battles, there were negotiations continually going on in France. Benjamin Franklin was the ambassador there for many years. He did enjoy his post there. There are lots of stories about Benjamin Franklin as a sort of an medium elder gentleman being feted by everybody, especially the ladies, at tea parties and dinners, and he was just, the person to be with in France. And the Americans made good use of the French. In terms of naming our city, that was a brilliant idea put forward by an author named Saint-Jean de Crèvecoeur, who was a Frenchman who literally rambled around New England, finding out what is it about these American colonies? What is it about they didn't have names state all the state names then, but he wanted to write about the colonies, about the Americans. Who are they? What are they doing? And he made friends with, of course, Ethan Allen, and who also liked to ramble about and throwing his weight around and having ideas and getting people to do things. And it was Saint-Jean de Crèvecoeur who suggested to Ethan Allen, well, I really think you ought to name something after after the Comte de Vergennes. He was so important to this whole revolution. And I'm not quite sure of the details of why he chose this city. I'm not sure. Maybe some of you will look it up and find out. I may have read it once, but have forgotten it. But it was he who suggested. Now, he did suggest that the naming would be either Vergennes, as the name of the settlement, or Vergensburg, B-O-U-R-G. So it's really good, probably, that you they decided to have Vergennes. Vergensburg just doesn't quite, do it. And the Comte de Vergennes remained somebody very important in history. There's a biography of him in the Bixby Library. Rachel will be glad to find it for you, which is an excellent biography, isn't it? By Orville Murphy. And the name of the book is Charles Gravier, which was the Christian name, Charles Gravier, le Comte de Vergennes, leader of statesmen during the Age of Revolution. Because don't forget, the French Revolution was only a few years after the Count died in 1787. Then the French Revolution just kept going after the American one. The importance for this festival, this huge week of festivals, is that all these letters that you are signing tonight were prepared by Robert Rogers, who is not here at the moment, but who has spent hours and hours printing out the letters in English and French. And they will be taken by courier to Versailles to be there for the first day of celebration, February 12th. The second day of celebration is the actual anniversary of the day of the death of the Comte de Vergennes, February 13th. And the governor of our state has made a proclamation, as they were preparing a long letter for signing. He has made a proclamation and a promise that February 13th every year is going to be Comte de Vergennes Day. So there will be more, Mayor Daniel, to come. So I think every year will be Comte de Vergennes Day. The signers that we have tonight who are going to sign their letters, in addition to all the council members, thank you very much, and Mel Hawley and Joan Devine. Marguerite Senecal, you are going to sign the chamber letter, your own letter from the Vergennes Chamber. You are information specialist. Do I have it right, Marguerite?
Correct.
Information specialist at the Addison County Chamber is going to sign her letters, and Mayor Daniels, I believe, is going to sign that letter too.
And we are ready for that.
Good.
You just pass her an extra pen, because we're still using that one.
All right.
Have her come right up. I'll have her sit in my seat
Very good.
and take care of the signing of the
Do you like the same?
Addison County letters.
Have you got your glasses on? The 03?
The 03 sweater.
You like this one better, there you go. And Marguerite, thank you very much.
I got it all warmed up for you.
Marguerite has made a beautiful letter which mentions the importance of
So see right there.
French Heritage Day that Marguerite has so successfully created. This is the 9th year, is it the 7th year or the 9th year? I'm trying to remember. 7th year. Marguerite created the whole event of French Heritage Day. I know you all know what an amazing day it is. And she has described the importance of that French Heritage Day for the city of Vergennes in the letter. So they will know about it. And Marguerite has compiled a collage of photos of the day to be sent along with the letter.
And for those that are watching on TV and are available tomorrow night at 5:30, there will be a meeting at the Edward Jones Business Office to discuss French Heritage Day, and we welcome any and all to join us. How was that, Marguerite? Did I do that?
You surely did. Thank you so much.
Are you good? You're going to sign your letters today?
Yeah, we're going to have
Good.
Rachel up in just a second here, and we will, after Marguerite finishes.
We will have Rachel Plant, librarian at the Bixby Memorial Library, who will sign letters from the library. beautifully done with the colors of the library. There will be 3, as the signers now realize, there are 3 original letters with all the original signatures, and these letters will be placed thusly. The number 1 original goes to Versailles, and this will be carried in a beautiful leatherette box that's been ordered for all the letters, including the photographs that we have to be sent, and they will all go originally to Versailles, carried by hand by a member of the Sons of American Revolution. One of the originator, Marguerite, is doing the stamp right now of the chamber, the Addison Chamber. The original invitation that came to the city of Vergennes was headed, the main person who invited everybody is the chairman of the Sons of the American Revolution in France. And so he has been the one to arrange this whole amazing week, which does include visits all throughout France as well as Versailles. So anybody wanting to go, next time we want to have somebody go to a function in France, some of you young people might still be around next time around, take the chance, because it would have been a lovely thing to go to. I should mention that the school today, I was at the Vergennes High School today, and the classroom of Matthew Dubois, who is a teacher of French, at the high school, had his students, 13 students were there, and they all signed the letters similar to the ones that you're all signing, not quite as long, in French. And Matt was a wonderful teacher. He had them all translating before they signed. I went twice. The first time presenting them with the letter, telling them a little bit about the history of the Pont de Vergennes, and he had them translating to French. So it was hands-on, exercise to do that. And they were all, I think, quite thrilled to do it. We had photos, and so there will be the students' letters, the Bixby Library letters, the city letters, the SAR-DAR letters, that will be 1 letter, and the chamber letter. Have I left anybody out? I don't think so. So that's going to be quite a big box. 1 copy of everything in this country will be held in the city vault, or anywhere that the city decides to keep their copies here in the city of Vergennes. And 1 copy will be kept in the special box in the Bixby Library. And in addition to those 2 original copies that will reside in this country, we will be making copies of as good a copy as we can, a precision printed copy or similar. We'll make many other copies for instance, the city, Mayor Daniels, if the councilors would like a copy, or other people would like, the school will have a copy, other
And
people.
I would like to present these to you for your safekeeping until they make their way to France.
Thank you very much, Mayor Daniels.
There are your pens.
Thank you very much.
Okay? And thank you very much for your very hard work.
Thank you for your very hard work. You're raising
Okay, excellent. We're going to move to the next item on the agenda. And the guests that we just have completed their stuff, if they'd like to depart, feel free to do so at any time. We know Marguerite's got a little ways to drive. We're going to talk, Mike Reedier and/or Darcy would like to address the council. Whichever one, step up or just stand up.
I just want to thank the City Council for allowing us to come here tonight. We realized that due to a typographical error when we submitted our petitions for a ballot measure to request an allocation from the voters at this town meeting, we submitted that with a $1,000 request rather than the $2,000 request that we had intended. And we're hoping that based on the history of the petitions that we've put in for the last couple of years at $2,000, the success of these ballot measures and our assurance that when we spoke to people about signing these petitions, we spoke of a $2,000 allocation, that the council would be willing to take a look at that and consider writing a ballot measure for the city meeting in March, that the Boys and Girls Club would be allocated a $2,000 amount as opposed to the $1,000 that went in on the petitions. And leave that to your discretion, but to understand that that was an error on our part that we would really appreciate if you would consider making that change for us.
I move that we amend Article 10 of the warning to read, shall the council appropriate $2,000 to Boys and Girls Club rather than $1,000?
Second?
Yeah, Joe made the motion and Lowell seconded it. I'm going to open it up for discussion. Peter?
I just want to make sure with Mel that, so the council is essentially putting forward this article as opposed to it coming to us by petition, because I'm presuming we have to go with the petition as it was submitted and as it was signed.
Yeah.
We can't change the petition itself,
That's correct.
but we can change the article.
Right, you know, Joe and I have had a lot of talk about this, about what do you do, and obviously, you know, when somebody's running for office and they file their petition, the law allows for 3 days to remove your nomination. Relative to petitions, once they land, they land. And again, as I mentioned to Darcy, I don't want to overcomplicate this thing, but you know, one of the things is that if they passed a petition for $1,000, and then if they came here, and let's say that the city council said, you know, let's put it to the voters for $10,000, and the $10,000 gets denied, then they never voted on the article that they submitted. So the way that I would treat this, Joan, it's really more of a Joan thing than a me thing, is that in essence, as I understand it from the Boys and Girls Club, is that if the city council agrees to commit to an article of $2,000, then in essence, the Boys and Girls Club would in essence consider their petition being withdrawn. All right, so that really that article becomes a city council article as opposed to a petition article. So they're basically, you know, I got a chicken and the egg situation here, but that's my understanding, is that the Boys and Girls Club is absolutely fine withdrawing their petition with a confirmed commitment of the city council to put it on for 2.
So maybe I misunderstood. So the actual petition said $1,000?
Yes, it did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do we need then to remove your draft had Article 10 and $1,000 and basically substitute our own motion? Is that what we'd be doing?
Yes, right, Joan,
Okay.
that's what they'd be doing.
Okay, all right.
And one thing we need to clarify, this is their 3rd year of petitioning, and if approved by the voters, they would not have to petition next year. So if they withdraw their petition and we add Article 10, where does that leave them in the petitioning structure?
And so I think what their request, I mean, I can't speak on behalf of the board, I think they understand that they made the mistake, and they can live by whatever the city council says, but I think if they were wanting, in a perfect world, they would appreciate the motion to be that the city council commit to an article of $2,000 and regard this year as their 3rd year of filing. And that way, as Joan said, next year, we would treat the Boys and Girls Club, if this is approved by the voters, then Joan would treat the Boys and Girls Club as if they had successfully, they had 3 consecutive years of approval by the voters following petitioned articles. So they would not have to, if this was approved at the 2,000 level, they would not have to obtain the 75 signatures for 2013.
So can I amend my,
I think 2 motions.
I have to make another motion?
I would say make 2 motions.
If the seconder's fine with being friendly, it's okay.
Yeah,
Mind if I amend my motion to include
Absolutely.
Okay.
and you got Mel's words, Joan?
Yep.
Okay.
or I'll get them.
We actually thought about some crazy things. One was honoring the petition that says $1,000 and then coming to the city council and asking the city council to authorize an article that said another $1,000, and we thought that the voters would think that we blew it on a cut and paste in our warning. But that is another way to handle it. We just think that that's,
That's confusing.
confusing.
Any other further discussion on the motion as amended or whatever it was? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So carried. Thank you. You're doing a great job with the kids.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate your support.
Okay. We're going to go into new business 8A, Julianne Jones Living LLC, the Vergennes Laundry, a request for, I gotta get my paperwork because it's in order and I'm going out of order. How did I get there? No, that's not it. Sell that packet, right? There you got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, one thing, Mike, relative to the request by Julian Jones Living, one of the things that I would request of the city council, that they handle, you'll notice that there's 3 requests here. I would recommend that the city council act on their first request, and then I have a recommendation relative to their second and third request, and I can tell you what my recommendation is. One is that relative to their outside consumption permit, I would like to speak, one of the things that Joan and I have talked about is that there was a time when outside seating licenses were something that were handled by me as city manager. And then there was a period of time, I think that maybe, I'm not sure what happened, but somehow they got shifted over to Joan, and really outside seating licenses are really my thing as a city manager, as opposed to liquor licenses, which are Joan's thing. So I can tell you that relative to request for outside consumption permit and request for new license agreement, I would recommend that the city council not act on the request for outside consumption permit until I've had an opportunity to speak with a liquor control officer for the state of Vermont. I want to learn a little more about how they view outside consumption permits relative to defining areas. So I would prefer that you not act on that tonight. I have no problem with you acting on the first class liquor license request, because I can tell you it's a process, particularly in this instance the first time through. It is a very different process that first time applicants do compared to somebody with a renewal. Relative to the third item under request for new license agreement, one of the things that I uncovered is that our so-called model license agreements probably have not been reviewed for over 25 years. They were actually written at a time when no business had handicap access, and so they were all about roping off some areas on the lower levels. And if you were to carefully read those outside seating agreements, they really are in desperate need of review. And so we have not, or I have not prepared an outside license agreement at this point, because those need to be rewritten, and I would rewrite those with communications with folks that wish to have one, because each license may be written a little bit different. The other thing is that in the future, any outside seating license would require an attached site plan. That's something that other licenses do not have. The other thing that I would like to implement relative to license agreements is a process that's very similar to that which is handled by the Development Review Board, because really what's happening is that the City Council is acting on a site plan of outside seating, and abutting property owners ought to have prior notice before the city council takes action. So what I want to do is implement more of a different process for reviewing those, and it's not something I'm going to delay for 6 months. I'm going to deal with it because it's all of the outside license agreements, of which we have 4. They're all wrong. They all need to be rewritten based on the conditions of the ground out there that exist today. So again, my recommendation, I have no objections to the city council acting on their request for a first-class liquor license, but would request that the city council defer action on the outside consumption permit and the outside seating.
We'll go through these one by one. First of 8A, first one, request for first-class liquor license.
I'll make said motion.
Motion made,
Second.
second, open for discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Requires your signature, okay? So, and you can use your own pen. Pass that around, and that'll end up with Joan, she needs that, okay? And I'd ask for a motion on the second item, request for outside consumption permit. I'd ask for a motion to table that.
I will make said motion to table.
Seconded.
Okay, Lowell made the motion, Randy seconded. Open for discussion?
No discussion.
No discussion, that's right, it's tabled. Okay.
You gotta vote on it, just all in favor.
Yeah.
But just vote.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and I'd ask for the same motion to table the request for new liquor license outside seating.
Make said motion. Second.
Randy made the motion, Lowell seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Do you think your time frame maybe, Mel? Within a month?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so that they have an idea?
So you're all set, and I will mail that to liquor control, and then Mel will just be in touch with you regarding your outdoor seating and your outside consumption. Which we can approve that at a later time, but we want to get the ball going on the liquor license so they can,
So are we not looking at the outside seating separately?
not tonight.
Not tonight.
Right. Mel explained that he feels the outside seating agreement needs some attention
Or
and
rewrite that.
rewritten.
Okay.
But your liquor license is.
Do either of you have any questions at this time that we might be able to address?
Well, I'm just wondering if in the current agreement that Mel sent the other day, it mentions that the outside seating is not to go beyond the property owner's storefront, like street front, and wondering if then we look at Peter Morris's block as a whole and as opposed to the individual tenants because we're not owners.
Yeah, the original agreement, that's really in part why Julian came to the city in the summertime, is because the original agreement, was tied to a site plan that pertained to space in front of her building. They came back to the city council, and the city council authorized an amendment to that license. That license actually expires on April 30th, I think it is, but actually they can't use them between November 15th and April 15th anyway, so in effect, it's expired. So, I think that, the council's tabled the matter relative to your request, and they'll take that off the table at the next meeting. And I hope to get a state official down here and have a process in place, as early as the next meeting in February, I would hope.
Next meeting will be February 21st. Okay? So hopefully that gives you some direction as to where we are. Okay, then now I'm going to move back to warrants. They're all signed. I'd ask for an approval of the minutes for the January 10th, 2012 meeting, City Council. Randy?
Make said motion.
I have a motion by Randy, a second by
Second.
Lowell. Omissions, corrections, errors? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We'll go to review the budget report. Any questions of Mel? Any comments, Mel?
Well, you know, I actually am due to do a line-by-line review. I will tell you that the revenue page, as I mentioned a number of months ago, is still a bit of concern. You know, there's a number of line items that appear to be falling short, and I would project that they fall short. And it's not going to be made up by selling scrap metal. But anyway, I am a little bit concerned of that. Obviously, I've expressed concern before about the police department budget, and you know, George and I have met, and he understands that he's dug himself a little bit of a hole. I will tell you that the cops grant, at one point, I thought that the cops grant, I had some flexibility in that the cops grant could cover basically, I don't want to say that it was totally open-ended, but I really felt that that cops grant could cover a period of, let's say, calendar year 2012, 13, and 14, and that's not the case. This grant absolutely expires on August 31st, 2014, and so therefore, and Adam O'Neill is the COPS grant employee, and so what we have done is retroactively to September 1, his base wages have been transferred over to a COPS expense line, and so there's journal entries in that budget to offset that. I will tell you that grant alone doesn't solve all of the budget woes of the police department. It still is a concern, as I've mentioned to you before. You know, holidays are problematic, and calls for service are problematic. You know, we just like I've mentioned many times, we don't control the weather, and we'd like to say that we can control all crime, but we don't. Again, it's just something that we have to watch. You know, obviously, you know, the public works budget's been a pretty good year. You know, it's you know, we're saving money. I can't say as we speak because it's snowing out there, but you know, obviously it's been a pretty easy year for us at this point. But you know, until we get through March, you know, I've seen it go ugly on us in March, and
I've seen it ugly in April.
so it's still a little bit too early to tell. Everything else, you know, really is is in good shape.
Back to the police department. We are not the only city that is in that situation. Mel has shared some information with me, and I watched the other town meetings on the TV, and other police chiefs have been brought in, and it's partly because of, and I'm not making excuses, is the amount of training that's required of them, and just some of the requirements they're set for the departments. It just runs it up because of the number of hours they have to put in for different levels of training. So we're not the only one, but we are going to have to look at that whole budget thing, again, different this year than we have in the past, because we don't want to budget what we wish for, but what we can afford and how we accomplish that, and then George has to sign on to that, so, okay? All right, anybody got any hot ticket items as far as committee reports they want to talk on? Randy, you're going to a meeting tomorrow night?
Yes. It's a Job Corps. It's not correct. I don't know if I'm going to be correct about this, but it's about employers and hiring Job Corps students, and it's a community, one of their community programs.
Okay.
Also, I would like to make a request that Ziggy will become the liaison for the seniors because of my change in work locations.
Any problem?
No? Okay.
Okay, good. So if and when you want, go visit them and bring back any information, see if they got any questions.
I'm getting that way. I'm getting close to that being one anyway, so.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, just for everyone's, so everyone know, Mel and I will meet with the new center director on Thursday night at 3:30 at Mel's office. Dennis Lambert,
It's in your paper, Andy.
Lamberd. Lamberd. That's and so we'll be meeting him and just getting meet and greet. So, anything else? Any other committees? Okay, open for public comment.
If I may, I would like to set a comment made in public at a meeting in December straight. Sadly, I missed that meeting. I watched the replay online, and other assignments have kept me away from the last couple of meetings. And I have exchanged emails with the person who said this, and he agrees with me. He was incorrect in saying this, and the comment was made that the Addison Independent printed multiple articles to correct multiple mistakes made in the coverage of unification. And I'd like to state publicly for the record that that's not correct. We printed one clarification about one paragraph in a 40-inch article up before the March vote last year. And to the best of my knowledge, that's the only correction that we published about unification specific to Vergennes. I will say I found two other corrections. One was on meeting time, which I believe was a mistake made by the Addison Northwest office, and the other was sort of a he said, she said with an Addison resident who thought that she didn't say academy, that she had said school, and I referred something she handed out as a flyer, but she thought it was a letter. So if you want to call those multiple articles with multiple corrections, I guess we could disagree on that. But this is mostly directed to those who just watch the city council meetings on television. That I felt it important to set the record straight that there were not multiple articles printed about multiple mistakes in unification coverage.
Thank you, Andy. Okay, old business, Addison County Regional Planning, Mel.
Yeah, I actually have someone that is interested, but this person has not absolutely confirmed, Mike, so that'll wait till next time.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Next item then would be the police station site alternative ranking. I did my job.
Good. I think
I did mine too.
I think, Mike, right out of the gate here, I want Zig to make a comment. I called Ziggy earlier in the day because one of the sites, when the memorandum went out to you folks, there were not any central business district sites, and since that time, there has been some consideration about central business sites. Zig stopped into my office, and so that's why and although this ranking, it speaks about Green Street, Ziggy, corner of Green and School Street, I can tell you that it's not just about Ziggy's block, her commercial block, but it's about her parking area on the other side of the road. And so I called Zig today to let her know that although just because B comes before C and the city council hasn't adopted a conflict of interest policy, I told Zig that obviously for her to be participating in detail about ranking all of the sites probably isn't appropriate. She had a conversation, and to me, Ziggy does have something to say, and I think you'll quickly learn from her that yes, she has a piece of property, but she does have something to say about her feelings about this homework assignment that I gave her, because it's not that she doesn't follow directions, but and I'm not going to grade you anyway, but
But I think that Zig would like to at least let people know what she did with her assignment.
Ziggy?
When he called me, I'd already done it, and I sat down probably 2-3 nights ago, and I look at each site, and I says, no, it's not as good as this one. So what I did, I literally had crossed out mine and the one across the road, and I went 1 through 11 on the property the city of Vergennes owned on New Haven Road. Because every time, I looked at this site, and well, it doesn't have this, and it probably wouldn't be that. And after about 15 minutes, I kept coming back to that, and that's exactly how I made it out. I picked the site on City of Vergennes off New Haven Road, and for all of it, I couldn't rate it.
I never viewed it as ranking 1 through 11 on all, because then it skews the whole,
Right.
that one. I mean, it makes it good, makes it bad.
Right, so one of the
It
things.
ends up in the middle again.
What I'd like to do at a minimum is if people have filled out their sheets, to just turn them over to Joan. And if somebody hasn't filled out their sheet,
Please turn it into Joan.
And turn it into Joan, and then have, Joan or I will put together a spreadsheet, and then have discussion once you've got kind of a report in front of you. I think it would be easier. And does everybody have their name on each one of them?
I put mine on.
I didn't.
There's two that don't have names.
I thought it was anonymous.
Well,
I put
I can
mine
figure out
on
my
because
rating.
of the conflict if they wouldn't get one.
mine's easy enough.
I can figure it out.
and we'll prepare. I mean, I don't want to totally, drive this process. I'm just trying to, figure out a way to move forward with what really is a policy in our city plan, and that's to consider development of a police station. And to me, one of the first steps is to try to come up with, a short list of preferred locations. So, and if people want to do this, if people want to do this a little differently, it's okay with me. I don't have a problem. But I'm just thinking that this might be a good first step to get these things ranked, get them in a spreadsheet, get that out to the city council the next meeting, and then the city council can start discussing the results of your own internal survey.
Okay. So you've got what? More to follow, right?
Yeah. So Joan, do you have everyone's? Or?
Yeah.
Okay,
I have mine, must be sitting at home, and I know I filled it out, but I must have set it on my dining room table.
The dog ate
That's
it.
true.
The dog ate it.
Let's say the cow. The cow. It had to be the cow.
Do you
I'm gonna have
want
to
mine?
stay in and I swear. I'll-
Can you do it while you're sitting there?
Sure.
Because I have one.
Okay. Okay, the next item, while Joe's dealing with that, we're gonna ask him to multitask. Conflict of interest policy. First off, we need to have a few corrections.
You sure can.
On the first item, under A, shouldn't mother and father-in-law be part of that? I mean, you've named everybody else under the, up here it says
Three.
grandchildren, siblings, la-di-da-di-da-di-da.
Well, I didn't write it, but
Well, shouldn't that be in there?
well, we have
I mean,
brother and sister-in-law. I don't,
If you have brother and sister-in-law, why not mother and father-in-law? Why-
Can't
why-
just put in-laws?
Huh?
In-laws to capture
However,
everybody?
however they want to word it, but
You know,
that's missing in there.
I would, the in-laws, I think, would be too broad, because you might take it all the way down, and if you said just mother and father-in-law, it would keep it within the context of what else is here.
Second cousin, third cousin. And of course, there's a spelling or word.
Brother or sister-in-law.
So add father and mother-in-law. Got it. Okay.
And on page 2, down, Article 7A, and should be chosen, right? As chosen by. Okay.
Chosen. Yeah.
For those that didn't see it, down on the bottom page under A, and it says, senior alderman as whatever the word wants to be, it should be chosen. And on the very last page, on D, on the end of the sentence, or the end of that line, they misspelled city, put a U on the end.
I guess I didn't hit F7. So,
Okay.
Where was that second change, Mike?
Flip the page. See right there, that's not that's not a word. At least not in my dictionary. Okay? So, now we'll go on to business about this. I don't know if we want to open any sort of a motion or just break right into the discussion. Probably discussion before we go to motion, because we'll get some stuff out on the table. So, who would like to go first?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Conflict of interest, number one, direct or indirect personal or financial interest of a member. I understand the sort of the spirit of that, but wouldn't like setting the tax rate be considered in the financial interest of a member since we're all city residents?
There should be something in here that under E, there's something in here that speaks to something where you're treating yourself no differently than anybody else is treated in the town.
Right.
And
because that's where I was looking. I was looking for something in that paragraph to that effect, but I didn't see it.
Yeah,
But there must be somewhere else.
I do remember what Mel was referring to, but I don't know where.
It's down on E. Article 3E defines public interest, talks about the broad community, front page.
Oh, yeah, but
It's very.
yeah, I know that typically, because when you're voting on the tax rate,
Yeah.
Yes, does it affect your own bill? Yes, it does, but it affects everybody else in the city at the same time. And typically, I really thought that there was something in here that covered that kind of situation.
Do you want something added? Or, I don't know how you would word that.
I'm not, I was trying to think of how you would say that, because it would be something about, some wording to say something, in effect, that an individual member of the council outside of the public interest, outside of the public interest, or something like that, but I don't know exactly how to word it.
It's generally a situation, the test is typically, does the issue affect the council member differently
Sure.
than a member of the
I
general public?
I certainly agree, and I understand that, but it just, it
But
doesn't.
understanding, it's a good
It's like,
point.
for example, the Boys and Girls Club. They rent from me, but what just happened, we had to put on this.
Yeah, I think that what Peter brings up, I think that E, at least whoever authored this thing, throughout this document, when it brings up public interest, I think that's what E is trying to do, means an interest of the community as a whole conferred generally upon residents of the municipality, and that's setting the tax rate. Now, where else in this document does the phrase public interest come up?
A member shall not accept gifts or page 2D, not available to the public in general.
It's actually in 5, okay? If you read 5, if you try to put the definition of public interest into Article 5 about disclosure,
Yeah.
a member who has reason to believe that he or she has or may have a conflict, but believes that he or she is able to act freely, objective, and in the public interest, in spite of the conflict of interest. So basically, when you're acting on something outside of that which would be considered the general public, I think, and maybe the dots don't come together very well, Joe, but I think that it's a relationship between E and Article 5.
But then it continues on that if the city council by majority vote still feels that there is a conflict, they have the authority to order that member to recuse him or herself in the matter.
Yeah. Peter?
I would say number 2, under purpose, I think also kind of defines it a little bit more, so that no member gains a personal or financial advantage from his or her decision. And I think 2, taken with E, for me, would speak to 1, narrowing it a little bit more. I mean, I share your question.
David?
I think that if we back up a little bit and we talk about what it is this document is supposed to do. And before I make a comment about that, I'd make another comment first, and that is that I've served on this council for a fairly long time. I can't think of a single instance in all my years on this council where we have had a situation where there was an issue where it affected somebody on an individual personal level, and that member of the council did not recuse themselves. So I want to make sure that that's really clear to the folks out there that are watching this on television and reading it in the paper, that this is, it's not a reaction to anything that's occurred. Nothing in my memory certainly would support that position. But from my perspective, I mean, what this document should do is 2 things. 1, it should protect the public interest from an individual on this council ever being able to be in a position to exert undue influence for personal gain. I think everybody can agree to that. But one of the things that it shouldn't do, it shouldn't be an instrument that allows anyone, whether it's a member of the public or another member of the council, to unfairly cause a council member to not be able to participate in a discussion. And so those are the 2 things that I think that the document should do. I think we need one. I think it's a good idea. I'm not an attorney. It's a legal document. It's binding not only on this council but on future councils. And I think we have to be very, very careful with what it actually does. And I think it's a good starting point.
Which actually brings me to one of my, or a series of questions that I have in terms of the impact of this. The League of Cities and Towns model that we had speaks to the issue of being able to, for a board to be able to force somebody that they've appointed to something, to force them not to take part. In this document, it's been carried over so that the council can force somebody to not take part in what's going on. That I have a question about that. I can't answer. I tried to check online to see if there was anything in the appropriate statutes about it, but I am wondering whether we want to have that situation where the council basically says you can't vote on this, you got to recuse yourself, or whether it's more of a leave all that process in there without putting the council in the position to order a person to recuse themselves. And I'm looking on page 2, if you look at the first sentence, and then you go down to in number 5, the last sentence, and the last sentence in number 6, the same thing.
I would agree. I mean, I see, one of the potential issues, and again, fortunately in the city here, I can't think of a single issue where things have really gotten ugly to that point. But it occurs to me, and maybe you have the same concern, that one of the situations is I'm reading that language, and from my perspective, if you had a member of the city council that was so obstinate and stubborn,
exactly,
as to not be as to not be willing to recuse themselves in an instance where, under this language, the council would legally be able to force them to do so, my thoughts are that that individual would probably retain an attorney and sue, and it would be a mess, and, you know, there'd be plenty of printers, I think, wasted. I mean, we've seen that's happened in other communities. You know, fortunately, it hasn't happened here. I mean, it's kind of routine in some other parts of the world.
I'm kind of wondering if we should pass this to our attorney and have him review to see if there's anything that violates a person's rights.
Well,
Where did this come from to start off with? I mean,
Came from the League of Cities and
Leagues
Towns.
and cities in town. Randy?
I have, my only concern, I don't mind signing a conflict of interest policy and going along with it, as long as it does not prevent myself or any other board member from having a personal opinion.
I don't think this doesn't do that, and that's not what it's intended to do.
Because
it's a good
way I feel about my position as being an elected official, that we should be able to go out and talk to our constituents about how we feel about a certain subject. And I do not want a document that's going to prohibit us from doing that in our capacity.
Yeah, one of the things is when this matter was brought in front of you by Cheryl, she made reference to a statute whereby a municipality can have the voters approve of a conflict of interest prohibition, all right? Now, and that is a statute that's sitting over there in whatever the section is, and the start of this section here, under 24, section 2291, is actually a different, it's not the same statute, it's a different statute. And this statute here, if you read it, it actually grants the authority of the city council to adopt conflict of interest policies for not only itself, but also for the other boards of the city, all right? Now, obviously, you directed me to write this policy for you, and I think you did that with some understandings, and one of the understandings is that I told you that the Planning Commission and the Development Review Board already have their own conflict of interest policies. The DRB is required to have one by law anyway, all right? And the law allows the DRB to adopt its own conflict of interest policy. Now, under 24 VSA 2291, I suppose an argument could be made that this policy trumps the DRB's policy. But I don't want to get us all bogged down in this thing. I think the bottom line is, I think that we all want boards that need conflict of interest policies to have them, all right? The DRB has them, and that's obviously to make sure that we don't have somebody on the DRB that's voting on their own application, or on the DRB voting on an application when they actually are already an interested party because they abut the property. That's already cured. And likewise, it's handled in the Planning Commission. I provide technical assistance for the Board of Listers, and I can tell you, and I will commit to you, that one of the first orders of business for the Board of Listers this year is for that Board of Listers to have a conflict of interest policy. I mean, they should have one too. They shouldn't be acting on their own assessments. They probably shouldn't be acting on their in-laws' assessments if somebody files a grievance. And so I think it's important that the Board of Listers, which are elected independently of you, they should have a conflict of interest policy. I feel the same way about the Board of Civil Authority. And Joan, I would say that for you, the next time that you have your Board of Civil Authority meeting, which is comprised of justices of the peace that are elected just like you're elected, and other people, particularly dealing with assessment appeals, that board should also have a conflict of interest policy, because members shouldn't be acting on their own assessments or their in-laws. So I think that I don't think the Board of Auditors needs a conflict of interest policy. They just simply review the audit and sign off on the audit. They're not involved with selecting the auditor, but I think that with the Board of Civil Authority, the listers, the city council, with this policy or something close to this, the DRB and the Planning Commission, we've hit them all. I think we will have accomplished that.
This was intended just for the council?
Yes.
Right, okay.
Well, the reason I lost my train of thought, and I was trying to get back to David, and if you have a policy in here that says the city council shall have the authority by majority vote to order that a member recuse him or herself from the matter. I'm not, we can go get a legal opinion. I'm not so sure that because you all are elected by the voters, all right? And you got elected the same way that she got elected. And for you to adopt a policy and by majority vote tell somebody that they must recuse themselves, I personally wouldn't feel very comfortable in that. Now, having said that, if the voters approve a conflict of interest prohibition that states that the city council has the authority to order somebody, that's the law of the land, right? So this is probably the one that bothers me the most, because I'm not so sure, because this is something that would be approved by the city council. I don't think that as city council members, you have the authority to order somebody else. The voters do.
Right.
I agreed, and I think we're all on the same page relative to that. The other concern that I have is under Article 4B, and I've read that a number of times, and it states, a member shall not personally or through any member of his or her household, business associate, employer, or employee represent, appear for, or negotiate in a private capacity on behalf of any person or organization in a cause, proceeding, application, or other matter pending before the city council. Again, I'm not an attorney, but I think that language is very, very broad.
Too broad.
And the way that, and the reason that I'm concerned, I mean, it's pretty common in Vergennes, as it is in a lot of other small municipalities, to have people on the city council who have various business interests in the city. The way that I'm reading this is that, and I have been in this position before, where a property that I own, or a property that I financed, or a business that I had an interest in, had particular business before the city council, and based on this language, and in those instances, I've been very, very careful in terms of me not representing the interests of the business and not voting on it and recusing myself. But as I read this language, it would be virtually impossible for me to bring any for there to be a matter that involved any entity whatsoever that I had any interest in to ever appear before the city council, based on how I read that.
Like I just said, the Boys and Girls Club, they rent from me.
Absolutely.
So, here I am. That's what I was wondering, what.
So it would be a situation essentially where, as a scenario, the Boys and Girls Club would, let's say the Boys and Girls Club decides that they'd like to, serve snacks outside. They'd like some outside seating in Ziggy's building. So it's Ziggy's building. Ziggy has an interest in it. So, Ziggy would technically be in violation of this clause here in Article 4, Item B. If she even said to Mike from the Boys and Girls Club, well, Mike, the way you'd like to handle that is you need to come before the city council, she would technically have violated that the way that I read this.
Although it doesn't necessarily, just to kind of add to the conversation, it doesn't necessarily, it's not beneficial to you, financially necessarily.
It certainly would be.
Yeah, it is. It would be.
They're outside seating?
Yeah,
They're a
because-
tenant in her building, and that outside seating.
Now, if she didn't increase the rent, it's just.
But it would add to, from a real
They would have the
estate
income coming in to
perspective,
make sure they pay the rent,
Yeah,
something
but
like that,
it would add to the value of the building.
But I think what that means is that in the circumstance you're talking about, Ziggy couldn't sit out there, or anybody else similarly situated, couldn't sit out there as a private individual and be arguing in front of the council that they should get that particular thing. I mean, I see it more narrowly.
That's fair, and that's the intent, but I certainly don't read this that way.
Okay.
You know, that's absolutely reasonable. That's what we should have. We certainly don't want anybody doing that, but this I'm concerned about because I just think it's overly broad. But again, it would be something to have an attorney look at.
And that's what I had mentioned earlier. Are we at a point where we table it and ask Mel to run it by her attorney, or what is
You know, I was going to actually suggest that those sections about where the city council forces a recusal, that those 3 sentences be removed from this as we go forward, because the enforcement is in Article 7. And the enforcement doesn't have to be getting somebody out. If we go into private session and come out and admonish somebody because they participated, I mean, that's the punishment. That's the appropriate punishment in the democracy. It goes out there, the person doesn't get voted in next time, if anybody cares about it.
Right.
I mean,
So
I'm not sure.
The document has the appropriate teeth without it. That's what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it would be C, it would be the last sentence in 5, disclosure.
It would be all of C?
No, yes, all of C.
All of number 3C?
No, all of 4C.
4C.
4C. The last sentence in 5, under disclosure.
The nevertheless?
Yeah. And in Article 6, the last sentence after 4.
City council shall?
Yeah.
The last sentence in what?
6.
City council
That
shall
one,
have the authority.
This one here.
Yeah.
And so you're sure that Article 7 could take care of the problems we did have?
Well, I think Article 7 is the appropriate discipline, if you want to use it that word, rather than saying to somebody you can't vote, which I'm really nervous about.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that next thing you know, somebody's gonna have get arrested for disorderly conduct. I mean, I can see where that one's headed. It happened in Burlington.
I mean, and in 7A, I mean, the first thing you got to do is go to the woodshed with the mayor. It's like, that's enough right there, you're done, you know. And the other part's about being admonished. If it was really, really bad, you can do it in public, you can have a little public hearing. I mean, that seems to me the appropriate, a full appropriate response to this.
So that's one of the prerequisites to be mayor, you're gonna have to own a woodshed now?
I got one out in the back of my house.
And I don't know how to fix B.
I don't either.
I agree that it does appear to be broad and too broad.
I just think that the language is very unclear and it's not well crafted. I think that all of us understand, you know, what we would like that to mean, and probably whoever wrote this did too. I just don't think that it's executed properly to achieve that. And I'm not an attorney, so I can't come up with language that does. But Jim Wilmette might be able to.
Mel, you alluded to this a little bit, but is this basically a voluntary document? I mean, is there any punitive kind of?
There's no punitive.
Right.
It's not and actually, as a matter of fact, when we were first talking about this and the word ordinance was being talked about, I know that some towns have adopted an ordinance. I don't think that a town has the authority to adopt an ordinance. You know, they can, if they want to do it, they can do it.
Right.
They can adopt a prohibition, and you can set forth, because the difference is that an ordinance you write tickets for,
Right.
and it's a misdemeanor. A prohibition is just really, it allows to set forth an enforcement, and it's no different. This enforcement procedure, that's all that it is.
What about the conflict of interest policies that have been adopted by the other boards? Are they similar to this, or do they have the power of law behind them?
No, there's no fining or anything.
Okay.
You know.
The only reason and it goes along with what David was saying, I mean, if a member of the public requested this, the subjectivity of it, I guess, is a little troublesome, because then somebody could, outside the board, I mean, this, I agree with you that we're all people that adhere to these kind of things already. Just the whole subjectivity of it allows somebody, member of the public, to come in and make accusations that are maybe would be troublesome.
But then we sit and talk about that, and we make a decision on the complaint, should a complaint come forward, I think.
Go ahead.
But that still opens it up to subjective. The board might find that the person did nothing wrong, but the damage has been done.
Well,
Yeah.
but I think that you have to provide a means for the public. I mean, as far as balance, I think that it's fair. We're all sitting here and we all know each other, but, again, we're not doing this specifically for us. We're hopefully creating policy that carries forward. And I think that it's important to have a balance. I mean, I would certainly want, if there ever was an instance where somebody was acting and behaving inappropriately and attempting to use their seat on the board for private gain, all of us would certainly want the ability for the public to be able to have some means to address that, and I hope that never occurs here.
See, I think really to me, one of the most important things about these kinds of policy really is about number 5. And it's about making sure that people remember this one at all times. And I can tell you, it's happened to us at a development review board meeting, where the development review board was halfway through a process, and a board member thought, geez, I don't think I should be in this deliberative session, right? And really, that's why 5 is most important. If there is any possibility, as remote as it might be, that there might be perceived a conflict of interest, that's the first thing that comes out of your mouth. And that's what's critical. Everything else falls from there.
Right.
So, one of two things has to happen here. Either we have Mel make the adjustment to what we have talked about, bring it back to the next council meeting, or we kick it to the curb, write it, or possible third, or give it to an attorney.
Yeah, well,
What's your thoughts?
I can tell you, this is the league's model, and what I would do, not, and as you know, I don't like attorneys' fees if I can go to the league. What I would suggest is that, certainly the father and mother-in-law probably was an oversight. That's good. I think I can go to the league and say, can you look at B? We have members on the board that just feel that this is too broad. And I think that, Peter's idea of eliminating C, eliminating the bottom of 5, and eliminating 6, we don't need to ask the league for permission. I think that we have recognized that a council policy probably doesn't have the right to take away some other elected officials' rights, and there's enough mechanism throughout. So I think that, the only homework you have here is to see if the league can just help us out a little bit with B.
Right.
To not have people feel uncomfortable, because it's too easy, David, as you're saying it. You don't even know it, and potentially somebody could criticize you for participating because you didn't disclose, because you had this just overly broad tarp here. It's too broad.
Then, as long as I don't get any disagreement, I would ask Mel to go back to the leagues of cities and towns and discuss the matters that we've brought forth at the meeting, and then bring it back at another meeting.
Yeah, I think it's a 2008 model policy. It probably needed to be looked at anyway.
You will have more discussion, you want?
No, are you talking about the whole Article 6 that we're gonna eliminate, or a certain part?
You only eliminated the last
sentence.
sentence
That's
in
the
the report. And what the items are is, Zig, is we're gonna,
City council shall have the
Oh, okay.
authority.
right, we're gonna have the league re-examine
Yep.
4B. And then when this thing comes back to you, 4C will be eliminated, the last sentence in Article 5 and the last sentence in Article 6. And the typos and the mother and father-in-laws will be corrected, so it'll be hopefully a little more polished for you next time.
Okay?
Perfect.
All right. Next item, and I don't really know that it needs any discussion, but it does need signatures, so.
Yeah, this is what
I'll pass it
somebody
on.
left behind last time, so Joan found it, and we're gonna keep our eyes on it
Very
this
small,
time.
because there's not a lot of space.
Mileage certificate.
Oh.
Everybody's getting it on there. Okay,
We didn't add any streets, it's the same mileage
Last
as
year.
was there last year, and probably the year before that.
And while that's being passed around, we'll go to Mel's report.
I'm just gonna report on two things. One is, one reason why I'm not gonna report on much is that this is the time of the year where we are just totally focused on getting the annual report together for the printer. So, we push out put out all the brush fires. If there's money to be deposited, Joan does the deposits, but all of the rest of us work on the annual report. The deadline is actually tomorrow. That's not gonna happen, but we hope to get it to the printers by either this Friday or the following Monday. I think most everybody, there's a lot of people that submit reports that we have to review, so we're in pretty good shape. The other thing, just to let you know, is I think I reported to you last time that the zoning regulations shrunk from 152 to 148, and now it's down to 142, which doesn't count the table of contents. The board met last night, and they still are not, the planning commission that is, and they still are not quite done. They have one more, this group is absolutely committed to producing a perfect set of regulations. And they met last night till 9 or 9:30, and they have one more meeting on Monday at 6:15. I'm going to say everything is done. I think there's 12 more pages that have some substantive changes that the planning commission wants to look at. And so what will happen is that they will have their public hearing on March 19th, and whether or not that document will go to the city council after that public hearing, or whether or not, based on testimony they received, they conceivably could have another public hearing. So that's the schedule on that. And that's all I had, Mike, for items.
Okay, any questions of Mel about anything? Riverwalk, they say the lights are on?
Lights are on? Yeah.
Is it done, or?
No, the railings are up. It's not done anyway, Mike. There actually is, the project completion is really May. There is some, there still is a little bit of concrete, more cosmetic type work that needs to be done, but certainly we're at 95% of the project. So the lights are up, the railings are up.
Are we gonna keep that open? I mean, of course, it's different this winter, but during the winter time, will that be closed?
Absolutely not. No, we
It's
won't
gonna be open?
No, it will not be open.
Oh, okay.
We are not gonna be shoveling
Yeah.
stairs, and no, that'll be closed.
Okay.
And for those people that have interest, there will be pre-bid meeting at the
train station.
At the train station site. I believe it's 9 a.m. on the 14th of February.
Valentine's Day, remember that one?
So that's starting to, I believe it's 9 a.m. I'll try to clarify that. Okay. Go to 8B, Catherine S. Hardy, a creative space gallery, and that has to do with request for art gallery and bookstore permit, malt and other spirits to be served.
Yeah, one of the things, This is, Joan, maybe you can chime in on that. This is a new permit. I don't know if it's this year, but go ahead, Joan, you can explain.
May 17th, 2011, this new permit is available through the Department of Liquor Control only to a art gallery or a bookstore, whereby they can have the owner or its staff can have someone who attends an alcohol seminar, and they would be allowed to serve malt or vinous beverages by the glass to the public within their bookstore or art gallery. And so we have our first application of such. It's very similar to a caterer's permit, only we're allowing them to serve wine, but they do not hold a liquor license compared to a caterer. The law doesn't address money at all.
Really?
So, I copied the law on the back for you. That the caterer or the person who's gonna serve the wine, they have to pay $15 for this permit.
Mel, did you have anything you wanted to?
Well, one of the things, Mike, is, you know, there was a time where every time that there was an event at the Opera House, at the 11th hour, they would hire a caterer and needed to get a recommendation from the city council, and so Joan and Melissa would drop everything and start making telephone calls to you folks, and I think we all agreed that that was just ridiculous, because all that we needed to do is just make sure that the caterer had insurance in place, and so Joan would go through that, and so we pursued to see if it would be permissible for the city council to adopt a policy whereby that authority could be delegated to Joan, because really all it is an administrative chore. And so the city council back in April, I think it was, Joan, of 2010, adopted a policy so that you don't get these telephone calls any longer with caterers. And when this came in, you know, Joan and I was at a Vermont Gas meeting on Friday, and when this thing came in, and Joan and me weren't able to chat, but we really feel that this should be treated similarly to the way that we deal with caterers. You know, other than, you know, the way that Joan handles caterers, make sure that they have, when catering on city property, make sure that they have proper insurance. And relative to this, it's not as though she would be looking for insurance. She would be looking to make sure that people have graduated, that they have their diploma in their application. And so the city council can handle this one of two ways. One is to act on the request.
Yeah.
All right, that's one way to act on it. The other is to act on the policy. And if you act on the policy, that would authorize Joan to be able to act on the request.
So we can just amend the policy for that?
It's already been written, we wrote it. Oh.
Amend the policy to add.
Well, we actually rewrote it because they're just not,
There's enough difference
they don't blend
because-
together very well.
So this is the
That's what she
policy?
handed
So
out.
this is
That's the new
That's correct,
policy.
that's the
Okay.
new policy.
New policy.
Draft.
Make a
I
motion?
make, no, go ahead.
Randy made a motion for the new policy that was just handed out, and we have a second? Ziggy seconded it. Open for discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So carried. We have a new policy.
Another one.
Another one.
Hey, Joan, no serving at City Hall, okay?
No, I have to be in the art gallery or the
Yeah,
bookstore.
yeah, the books are coming in.
You got a lot of books. You got a lot of books.
But I'm not selling them.
Hey, but you got a lot of wine in the vault.
I do.
Joan, we have both of Ken DeGree's books on the counter.
Oh, that's right, and I am selling those.
And we got an in.
And I've got wine in the vault. Party at my place tomorrow.
Now, can you have it Thursday? I'll be there Thursday. Okay, that was good. All right, so that's dealt with. Item C, review use of fire station meeting room policy.
Peter, actually, when I sent this out, Peter this policy out. Peter requested that the council take a look at the policy, and one of the things that I wanted to find time to do, and I didn't, was just to give a little bit of history, is that when this room right here was created back in 78, 79, it was recognized immediately that this is good space,
Right.
and the city council should have some kind of a policy regulating the use of the space. And I can tell you that the first policy that was written, I remember Howard Miller got all upset about this because, he felt that, here the public sunk $250,000 into this place, and then you can't use it because you had such a restricted policy. And I can tell you the initial policy that was written, fire department, city council, board of listers, board of auditors, planning commission, development review board, period. So basically, if you weren't a city department, you couldn't use this space. It was that done. That was that clear and that restricted. I was gonna give you a copy of that. And in 1991, 1992, I sat on a lot of boards, and I tell you, I was just sick of traveling. And so I thought, you know what, if we could host these things, it could cut down on my travel. And so that's why you see Addison County Solid Waste District, all of the various entities that we're a member of. Like I say, this old policy, didn't allow the Addison County Regional Planning Commission to hold a meeting at the Vergennes Fire Station. And I just felt it was just too restrictive. And so that's why all of those organizations, Peter, got added to that.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Yeah.
then in 2003, it was, I think says something about 2005, there apparently, Joan, was a request that we add school district related meetings to there. And so this policy has obviously loosened up considerably to what it is here. The one area that probably could use a little help is that there is not an exceptions rule written into the policy.
Yeah.
And, the city council has granted a couple of exceptions. Yeah, I can remember there was a time when the Boys and Girls Club didn't have a place, and the city council allowed them to use that on a very interim basis, all right? Also, the United States Census, the city council allowed that. Vermont Gas, I will tell you that I don't think Vermont Gas is gonna end up meeting here on February 8th, but when there's a project like that, they need some spaces. So it doesn't have a little bit of flexibility in there, but in part, I think it was on purpose. I mean, they really, when you have a facility, and if it's just opened up to everybody and it's free, all right, you end up with custodial costs, and people don't, you have to have a staff person come down and make sure that it's locked and stuff is put away. So I can tell you that the policy that we have now, other than the fact that we do run into some exception, the city council deals with it, it seems to have worked. It seemed to have worked fine.
My simple direction on this was that it seemed that the example we were talking about just seemed like Joan could use her own judgment, you could use our own judgment, just say, use it. And the policy seemed to restrict that to the extent that we had to weigh in on it. And that was just to make it simpler to that in terms of letting, or similarly situated organizations, something at the end that just is like this.
Joan is
You
the
guys
keeper
judge.
of the calendar for the
Right.
space.
Correct,
Right.
right.
But that was it. And I mean, if that doesn't need to be done, then,
Well,
leave it
maybe
alone,
like
but-
the very last sentence, it says a state agency or board can use the fire station meeting room for meetings or hearings which relate to development projects
Yeah.
within the city. Well, if we had said something like a state agency or board or other
Or similar
Similar.
entity.
Yeah.
Similar entity, yeah.
that
Yeah.
it is gonna, it deals with something for the benefit of the gens, then, I would be able to schedule
Yeah.
that without opening the door to every
Everything, yeah.
clubhouse. But I just
Anyway.
didn't have the authority to say yes, so we bounce it back to the
I wanted to
council.
give you the authority to say yes in that. That was kind of where I was heading here. It just,
So we'll, I think that, I understand, it takes up our time and it takes up your time for us to be polling you on stuff that are no-brainers. And if we can write a policy that turns the no-brainers into just one more thing that Joan just pops on the calendar, it saves us time. So I think that we can, but I can tell you, we want to be real careful with that language, because I can tell you, we don't really want to, it's difficult for us to, if the place becomes overused, so.
So, you're gonna work the verbiage on the very end of that to give it more direction towards, and then bring it back to us at the next meeting?
Yeah, I don't know about the next meeting, but
Well,
we'll put it
whatever,
on our plate.
whatever,
Yeah.
put it on the plate.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, so it's back on there, Mel and Joan's plate to change the verbiage and bring it back to us to adopt.
Specific
Okay,
request that is filed with the policy.
item number D, the one we've been waiting for. Warning, annual city meeting, March 5th, 2012. Joan, you want to speak to any of this, or?
Well, the first couple of articles are things that the council authorized to put on the ballot already. Article 2, dealing with increasing the percentage of voters' signatures required on a petition for reconsideration or rescission. The Article 3 was approved at the last meeting to increase the watershed reserve fund from $300,000 to $350,000. And the fourth article was also approved, and that will do away with the mailing of the annual report if it's approved by the voters, and just having it available. The other articles are the ones we get every year. They're either petitioned or letters of request have come in. So every article is here that was there last year. And the only difference was the one petition that we've addressed earlier in the meeting. So I've prepared the warning with 2 front pages, one at the 1,000 and the second one with the 2,000 that's in your hand that we're gonna sign. So we can just eliminate the one that says 1,000, and we would be golden if adopted.
What article's that again?
10.
10. Whoops.
Yeah.
Other side.
That's why, like what Joan said, she's printed the first page
Twice.
twice. And so you can throw the sheet that says 1,000, that one can go.
Oh. Need a motion on those?
Should
Yep,
adopt the warning.
I'd ask for a motion
to adopt as
to adopt
presented.
the articles as presented.
I'll make said motion.
Second?
Motion by Lowell, second by Randy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. I'm gonna try to mix it up a little bit this year. I have all the contact information, thanks to the office, and I'm gonna be contacting all the people that sent the request in and try to talk to the highest person within that rank and request that they have an individual there that night to read their article and to take questions. Be prepared, because I'm gonna make a script as a backup if they don't show. So, I'll do it the way we do it, have done it in the past. Lowell will get so many, so he may luck out and not have to read any. Joe will be next in line for so many. So, I'll lay out as I have in years past, so you know, I'll cue you in what you gotta do, or what you might have to do. And
Items on the warning.
item on the warnings, okay? And one of the things I wanna do this year is, it's hard to hear some of the people, so I'm gonna set up a PA system. So we want to invite the camera people too as well. So, yeah, I don't want to send those off. Okay, thank you. So that's what's happening there. So I think that covers that. Next meeting is February 21st, standard time, 7 o'clock, here at the fire station. Just to let everyone out there in TV land know, and some of the people that participated in the Haunted Forest this year, a donation of $1,000 has been made on behalf of the Haunted Forest 2011 proceeds to Jackman Fuels for in-house fuel assistance program to help local residents that are having trouble paying their fuel bills. Cool. So, thank you, Mel, for assisting on that matter. So, as I mentioned earlier, French Heritage Day meeting tomorrow night at the Edward Jones office, and February 8th, 7 p.m. Good thing George mentioned it was a UHS, because I thought it was at the parish hall. Meeting about the community drug situation, how it's going. Big turnout last week, or last time, and it'd be nice to see faces there again this time. It's got some momentum, and it's going to take that for a little bit to keep that going. So, anything else anybody needs to bring out at this meeting? If not, I'd ask for Lowell to do the honors.
I would make the motion to adjourn.
Motion made, and Ziggy seconded it. I just saw her nod her head.
Second.
There you go.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.